Welcome to the Commodities Trade Institute podcast, your daily breakdown of the global commodities markets and the forces moving them. I am Emily Costa. Today is Wednesday, May 6th, 2026. We begin today with a look at the tightening grip on the global power and carbon markets. The energy map of Europe is being redrawn in real time as the fallout from the United States-Israeli war on Iran deepens. Qatar LNG has just extended its force majeure on liquefied natural gas supplies to Edison, Italy's major utility, through early July. This is a significant blow. We are talking about 12 cancelled cargoes since the conflict began, representing nearly one-third of Edison's annual contracted volumes. When you realise that these attacks have effectively knocked out 17% of Qatar's total liquefied natural gas export capacity, you understand why the panic buttons are being pressed in Rome and beyond. What is perhaps more fascinating is the political pivot we are seeing in response. Next week, European Union energy ministers are taking the unusual step of discussing a return to domestic natural gas drilling. For years, the narrative in Brussels has been about a rapid exit from fossil fuels, but the current price shocks have forced a pragmatic, if uncomfortable, conversation. Cyprus, which holds the European Union presidency and has its own offshore reserves, is leading this charge. They are framing it as a balance between energy, security, and climate goals. But the reality is that countries like Romania and Cyprus are now looking to their own soil and sea to act as a buffer against a volatile global market. That volatility is equally present in the metals sector, where we are witnessing a potential changing of the guard in how the world prices its industrial materials. This week is London Metal Exchange Asia Week in Hong Kong, but the talk of the town isn't London, it is Shanghai. The Shanghai Futures Exchange recently opened its nickel contract to overseas firms, and the traction has been immediate. In the first quarter of this year, Shanghai's share of global nickel trading volumes surged to 55%, effectively overtaking the London Metal Exchange. This is a challenge to the dominance London has held for decades. Many in the industry have been looking for an alternative since the nickel trading crisis of 2022. And with China being the world's largest consumer, the China price is becoming the benchmark that matters for physical traders and hedgers alike. Staying with metals, there is a bizarre economic story unfolding in the copper market. Right now, copper smelters in China are actually accepting negative treatment and refining charges. In plain English, that means smelters are paying miners for the privilege of processing their ore. Usually it is the other way around. Why would they do this? The answer lies in a byproduct, sulfuric acid. Because of a war-induced shortage and China's recent ban on acid exports, prices for sulfuric acid have skyrocketed by over 200% year on year. Smelters are losing money on the copper itself, but making a killing on the acid byproduct. However, this is a dangerous game. As acid prices begin to soften, the acid buffer is thinning, and we could see smelter run rates drop, which would tighten the global copper supply even further. Turning our attention to the fields, the agricultural sector is grappling with its own set of supply shocks. In the United States, the outlook for the Oklahoma winter wheat harvest is frankly dire. Local experts have projected a harvest of just over 47 million bushels. To give you some perspective, the 10-year average for the state is nearly 95 million bushels. We are looking at a crop that is half of its usual size due to a severe and persistent drought in the southern plains. Farmers are actually planning to start their harvest 3 weeks ahead of schedule, simply because the wheat is failing to fill out in the heat. While wheat struggles with dry weather, palm oil is riding a massive rally. Prices are expected to climb another 12% to reach 5,200 ringgit per metric ton by mid-July. This isn't just a food story, it is an energy story. With global crude oil prices hitting $126 a barrel, palm-based biodiesel has become incredibly attractive. Indonesia is doubling down by reinstating its 50% palm biodiesel blending mandate starting July 1st. When energy prices spike, they pull vegetable oils right up with them, creating a feedback loop that is making food inflation a persistent headache for major importers like India. In the world of dry freight and soft commodities, we see a curious divergence in Uganda's coffee sector. In March, export volumes actually rose by nearly 3% as a good crop came to market. Uganda remains Africa's largest coffee exporter, shipping over 671,000 bags in a single month. However, despite moving more beans, the country's earnings fell by more than 13%. It is a classic volume versus value trap where local productivity is being offset by lower global prices. Meanwhile, in the grain trade, Jordan's state buyer walked away from a tender for 120,000 metric tons of milling wheat without making a single purchase. It's a sign that even in a tight market, some buyers are willing to wait and see if they can catch a better price in the next round. Finally, we look at the shifting strategies in the oil patch. In North America, the long-dormant dream of a major Canada to United States pipeline is showing signs of life. The proposed project by South Bow Corporation and Bridger Pipeline is reportedly close to securing the 80% commitment threshold required to move forward. This pipeline, running from Alberta to Wyoming, would use a portion of the infrastructure left idle after the Keystone XL cancellation. With a cross-border permit recently signed by President Trump, this project could increase Canadian exports to the United States by more than 12%. It represents a vital egress for Canadian producers who have been choked by a lack of takeaway capacity for years. But perhaps the most disruptive move in the oil market comes from the Middle East. Following its exit from the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries on May 1st, the United Arab Emirates is pivoting toward unconventional shale-style production. ADNOC, the state oil giant, is moving toward a final investment decision on massive unconventional gas and oil projects. By operating outside of the quota system, the Emirates are positioning themselves to meet global demand with what they claim will be the lowest cost and lowest carbon barrels in the world. However, the reality of the war is still biting. Secondary sources indicate that United Arab Emirates production fell from 3.4 million barrels per day in February to just under 1.9 million in March. It is a reminder that even the most ambitious strategic pivots can be sidelined by the immediate realities of regional conflict. As we look ahead, the themes of regional self-reliance and the fragmentation of global benchmarks are only going to intensify. Whether it is Europe drilling for its own gas or China setting the price for the world's nickel, the old certain ledges of the global commodity trade are being tested like never before. If you found this episode valuable, be sure to subscribe, share and leave a review. Find us online at commoditiesinstitute.com.